California State University Fresno is, we have about 22,000 students. That's total head count. And we are a multidisciplined state institution that serves, it's a 4-year institution, including master's, and actually has 1 doctorate or 2 doctorate programs now. We have just under about 2.7 million square feet, and it's been just celebrated its 100th anniversary. My team came to me and said, "Bob, I think the quote was, you're hemorrhaging cash, and we're going to have to do something to turn this around," because we were looking for every available dollar that's out there. Truly, our budgets have declined, not been flat, have declined for probably the last 5 years. Each year there's some subsequent cut. And we started to implement this software in the middle of those, at the very beginning of those cuts. And so you start thinking, well, is it worth that investment to spend to try to obtain a better software? How's that going to twist the nuts out in the field, and how's that going to fix stuff that I needed fixed because I'm having less people? If somebody retired, they just don't get replaced in a lot of cases.
So looking at the pain points for Fresno State, obviously work management was huge. Coupled with that was the need to automate the billing process in a way that would make it either interact with PeopleSoft, the campus's system of record, directly or indirectly. So we wanted to automate billing. We wanted AiM to produce a file that we could hand off to accounting that would allow us to basically just get paid right away. We needed better inventory control, and we needed a really slam dunk solid purchasing system. And what we needed to know as an organization was how much money we'd spent, how much money we had left on our blankets. We needed to make sure that everything was being billed off to work orders correctly so we could get the automated billing. And then most importantly, there needed to be very clear and easily accessible end user visibility to financial information. And I think that that was the main thing that we saw in AiM that we didn't see anyplace else.
We're able to produce reports in a very quick succession to whomever might need information, whether it be the vice president of our facility or the vice president of the university or the president. And we didn't have that ability before without long agonizing hours of trying to throw a bunch of paper together.
We can customize reports. We can get the data out in a usable fashion that we can compare to whether it be the APA standard for nationwide cost recovery to see how much you're spending, whether it be something from NACUBO, whether it can be any of those professional organizations that are always out seeking data. That data is readily available. We used it just recently in our union. One of our unions had a big issue of trying to capture a certain amount of data. Some of the campuses couldn't really meet that without hours and hours and hours of work to go back in and to manually retrieve that stuff.
The guys found that the iDesk app that AiM put out was very, very easy to use. It was completely tailored to them. They had these channels or these queues where they could look at their specific work assignments given to them by supervisors. They had another channel where they could go to do routine PM work and see all their PM work orders if they caught up on all the emergency jobs. And then what we saw was the paper process died down. So at that point, looking at how much time was spent printing, how much money was spent on paper, trips back and forth to reprint, you know, not having your piece of paper with your work orders on it. You go to the warehouse to pick up parts, you don't have your work order number. You factor in all that time. You factor in the data entry that didn't have to occur to get those time entries into the system. You factor in just this huge return on investment in terms of accurate data. So you look at it and you don't see any more completed work orders missing charges. You don't see any more work orders with double charges on them, or work orders with no information on them because a piece of paper got lost or damaged, which means you don't have managers and supervisors having to backtrack and figure out what happened. The accuracy of the data just improved twofold. So we looked at all of that, we did some analysis, and we found that iDesk paid for itself in 4.6 months. Under 5 months, the investment we made in iDesk had already paid for itself. And as far as we're concerned, the rest of it's just gravy. we've just seen year over year, we've seen no less than a 20% increase in billable services year over year. And that's taking into consideration the fact that we have fewer employees, we have fewer requests coming in. So really we've got increased revenues coming in when there's really less work to be done, which is just huge. So it's been a big selling point for the staff too, because where we had a lot of trade workers, supervisors and managers who were not open to the idea of any kind of detailed tracking of day-to-day activities, they were made to understand pretty quickly that if we got an extra $200,000 of billable revenue, or billable services revenue, we were talking about 4 jobs. And so what we did with the guys is we would explain it to them in terms of how many people are not going to be let go because we're showing diligence in the system. And it took about a year, year and a half for them to really understand, especially with layoffs and just a really very difficult situation happening in California, that by showing a little bit of diligence and using the system and allowing the automation to take care of its part, we were saving jobs. Every year there were people, you could look around and say, okay, these 4 people didn't have to go this year.
I'd say we probably dropped off 60% in customers calling us. They do their customer service requests online, and then it just gets moved right into a work order. That traffic has just dropped off dramatically. And then instead of it going out on a radio call, it gets distributed out on AiM and goes right out to the shops or out onto the wireless unit, the PDA, and it's handled right there.
Since we've implemented AiM, and since we've actually started the mobile access to where we actually give our people iPhones and they go out and enter their work orders, it's unbelievable. I paid for the system the first year, period. My recharge rates were that significantly increased that it more than compensated the cost of the software program. I don't endorse products and do those types of things. That's just not me. But quite honestly, they made me into a believer.